and it's kind of you put under this blanket. So I guess the first question I would like to tackle is two-pronged. Considering this diversity, what are the key similarities and differences that you have found within maybe your travels or collaborating across the continent? And from those observations, how do you think these variations and these differences can contribute to an overall identity of African fashion? And I say that very loosely. And then the double prong to that is, how then do you think that influences how we collaborate across the continent? Does our diversity connect us, or does it split us apart? And I'm going to give each panelist an opportunity to answer this question. If you feel you don't want to, you're welcome to skip. But I will start with, happy International Women's Day, everybody. So I will start with the minority on the stage, James. If you could, do our differences connect us? Can they connect us? Can they help us collaborate? And, can we come up with something called an African identity in the fashion industry?
Hi guys, I'm James from Kenya. The brand is Itikadi, and our vision is to elevate African aesthetic through creativity and innovation. So that's what we are aiming to do. In regards to the question, I think there are plenty of similarities. Even this is my first time in Zim, and already I'm seeing a lot of things that I can relate to here. Like I keep telling guys, I still feel like I'm home. I don't feel like there's a big difference between Kenya and Zim in terms of how I feel when I'm here. And a lot of African countries, a lot of African cultures, you'll find you either you have a strong culture of adornment, so either through beadwork or stuff like that, or prints and such things. And you'll find this cuts across a lot of African countries. Of course, because we migrated and guys moved everywhere, there are a lot of similarities. I keep hearing pops of Kiswahili here and there, just because it's a Bantu language as well. And it gives us the opportunity to kind of, I would say, cross-culturally, try to come together in regards to what we can do. I might have a different aesthetic, and I love prints, so I could use a print from Zimbabwe or from Ethiopia and kind of collaborate that way with a brand, across in another country, and kind of cross-sell that to both audiences. And I think that's one of the easier ways to kind of do it, and it also gives us the opportunity to really learn about the other culture and, why do these prints, why are these prints like this, and why are you, we can really learn a lot from each other that way.
We can move on, and then I'll direct the next question.
Good afternoon, everyone. My name is Yvonne Ahimbisibwe. I'm from Uganda, East Africa. I'm the founder of Shwanda Collection, which is a brass jewelry line that was founded like about in 2017, let's say, but that was on the casual side of things. It started out as a hobby, and right now it's a fully fledged business. Thanks to the British Council and Bold Woman Fund in Uganda, who have held my hand on the journey to make my business more professional. So back to your question about the culture, does it divide us or connect us to? So to a great extent, the diversity, the different cultures actually connect us very much. And personally, my personal story, I started out in Kenya. I went to school in Kenya. That's how I picked up my love for African style, the Maasai culture. They have these beautiful beads that they make of jewelry. So I started out selling beads, and then later I discovered this metal called brass. It's mainly in Kenya and maybe Congo. So that's where my business grew from. I always loved jewelry. So I was like, let me tap into this. We don't have this in Uganda. why not do this? Like, I love jewelry so much, and I love the fact that it's African inspired. It speaks to our culture, so we can build so much on our differences. Like, personally, as from Uganda, then I found something so beautiful in Kenya. As like, let's have this brass. What I'm wearing right now is brass. It's a material called brass. It's made up of copper and zinc, and it doesn't fade, it's durable. So for me, I use that as an opportunity to grow my business. Like, I tapped into something different. So if you need some inspiration, you're creative, maybe learn from other people. Like, you could always tap into that. Maybe you feel like you know everything in Zimbabwe or it doesn't sell. Tap into the other guys, because there are people from Rwanda, Ethiopia, Kenya, Nigeria. You could learn something from them and tap into that. If they have a different print from Zim, you could explore that. So for me, I look at it as an opportunity. When you network with others, you get to learn something new, and you could build on that in your business. Thank you.
Thank you.
What are you going to do? Hi, everyone. My name is Melat. I am from Addis, Ethiopia. My clothing brand is Dolmel. We specialize in hand-woven textile, where we integrate it with digital reactive printing technology, which has been done for the first time in the country and in the fashion and textile industry in Ethiopia. So we use water-based ink, which is non-toxic, and only works with natural fibers like cotton, viscose, and silk. So to go to your question, I think that we have so much that we connect that actually divide us. Because let me talk about the signature pattern that we do, which is inspired by my late grandmother's traditional tattoo that she had on her body. So I was having a conversation the other day with my fellow designers, and there are some similarities of elements of those like shapes or symbolization of certain elements and shapes like cross, sun, spirituality, and all of those things. You see it in other parts of the continent where they also communicated certain things that way. So it was for me, especially last year when I was showcasing in Nairobi for East Africa Textile and Trade Fair Show. There were a lot of people who were very felt very connected with the pattern. And so what I'm trying to say here is, yes, it's very rooted in our Ethiopian culture, the tattoo elements, but for other Africans also to see and be like, oh, I see myself in those patterns, and it feels tribal, it feels African. So that for me was something that really inspired me to do more, and also do more research about other cultures in the continent, because we have so much. We have untapped, rich, culturally rooted elements that we can incorporate into our products and into our story. So it's definitely something that will always connect us. But the other day, James mentioned about we Africans not telling each other stories enough. So because I don't know much about what Rwandan culture has, or Zimbabwe, or in South Africa or Nigeria, Uganda. So we need to have that conversation first between us to inspire, and because it's a very challenging industry, especially when we have the eyes of the global, where we are expected to be in a certain box and be expected to be an African identity, but we have so much. We are different. I don't believe in having just one African identity, because that's not what we are. Like in my country, we have 80 plus tribes in different languages. And I'm sure all of my fellow Africans also have the same history, right? So we just need to have that conversation, and we really need to keep this meaningful and impactful conversation keep going between us. This shouldn't be a week that we're going to be like, vibe and all of that, and just like disappear from each other's lives and experiences. So I really urge everyone to really keep having this conversation.
Thank you.
Good afternoon, everyone. My name is Rahma Baingana, and I'm the creative and operations lead of a Rwandan brand called Otbaso. So at Otbaso, we do, yes, make apparel, but also have expanded into home decorations and weaving, etc. Them jobs, and they're able to sell across the world. So mainly our plan is to always like yes, so our main plan is, can you still hear me? Yeah. Yeah, so our main plan is to always like teach these women and inspire them so that they can go and create their own businesses as well. So just to reply on the question that she was saying, yes, we've all touched on, all my fellow designers have touched on patterns and etc. But as something that I've seen that is a similarity from all across Africa, it's weaving. We do a lot of weaving. Everybody, like, we have so many clients that we have a very particular stool that we make that are convinced they've seen it in Ethiopia, but it was made by women in very rural areas in Rwanda. So that's one of the similarities that I can think about. So just to expand on what Melat was saying, we have so many similarities, and we also have so many differences as well. Like we should not have one identity. However, though, we should inspire each other. The thing that I've seen that causes a lot of issue in so many countries in Africa is that, oh, I've seen this here, they've copied it, they've done. It's actually not copying, it's mainly being inspired. Like we've come here and we've seen like a particular pattern from someone. It's like, oh, okay, how can I actually incorporate this and make it more Rwandan for the Rwandan market and also for the market abroad as well. So it's really about inspiring each other. When we inspire each other, we inspire collaboration as well. So, yeah, thank you.
Right, hello everyone. My name is Chido Kaseke, and I've had a great passion for handcrafting or creating with my hands, which led to me starting my brand called Patch Maokwe Zimbabwe. And there we create handbags from recycled and sustainable materials, including Hessian and recycled leather. My inspiration is also drawn from cultural objects, the history of cultures. So I really like the fact that you asked about our cultures as Africans, because I think we've come a long way from colonialism, and we lost our identity through colonialism. And I think as Africans, we've got to fight hard. Excuse me. We need to carry on fighting hard to gain back our identity as Africans, because our identity deals with such rich cultures and history, and we need to share those stories, which are so deep, with the entire world, with the globe. Nowadays, people they buy a product because of the story that's behind it. Mm-hmm. So the similarities that we have in our cultures as Africans, I think, are really important to take across when we're making our products and taking them across the globe, because that's how we're going to grow our industries, and we can do it together because of that similarity in rich cultures and historical stories. Yeah.
Hello everyone, my name is Rungano Nyamayadenga and I'm from Zimbabwe, and I run a brand called Paper Pieces where I upcycle paper to create jewelry. So I think I like to say that I make paper fashionable, and to contribute to this particular angle of the conversation, I think the other day I was having a chat with Milat about how in Zimbabwe we don't have a national dress, but what we've noticed at a lot of these traditional weddings that we have, people are wearing pieces inspired by different cultures. So it could be from South Africa or Nigeria, Ghana. And before I used to think of it as something that's not appropriate, but then, of course, we lost a lot of our inspiration or like the way that we dress due to colonialism, like what Chido mentioned. But Milad said that could actually be a beautiful thing because our culture is so rich that you're able to tap into another cultural, traditional dress to incorporate into your something that's so meaningful in your life. And I think that speaks to the importance of the differences that we have, but we also have shared things that we can pick up and also incorporate in our dress, right? And because I make paper jewelry, it's not something that I founded myself, but across the continent, when I visit different countries, there are many people who are making paper beaded jewelry, but it looks different, but it's the same thing. So I think that also helps me in how I create and how I design, because I see that, in Uganda, they have a lot of paper jewelry, but it looks different because it appeals to that market. How can I make my jewelry to appeal to the Zimbabwean market? And that's one of the things that helps us to learn and grow what we create, because we can share our design practices amongst each other.
Thank you. So, Tomiwa and Henry, I will pull you in on the next question. I feel, from listening to you, I feel like if someone had to put a gun to my head and say, so what is the African identity? I think I would call it authenticity. I think that's our identity, the fact that we're so authentic within our own cultures and within our diversity, and each tribe, each clan across the continent has something that inspires the other and still is very interconnected, just from the fact that we're all born from the same soil. So I'll pose that as a proposal that if ever someone had to ask, just like how someone might say, oh, you're from Kenya, do you know my friend in South Africa? Be like, no, you're from Berlin, do you know my friend from Scotland? But I think authenticity is something we can lean on, is something that everybody has in common across the continent. Everyone is authentically themselves. So building onto that, a lot of you spoke about history, spoke about how, like your designs are drawn from the past, drawn from things that we've been doing for generations or things that have been passed on. But then you have a situation like Zimbabwe where a lot of our clothing, especially, or some of our culture was erased through issues like colonization. How do we then bridge that gap between, our historical, our background, our history, the skills that our grandmothers and our great-great-grandmothers and our great-great-great-great-grandfathers used to practice in terms of fashion and textile, to bridge that gap to who we are today, and also not just you now, but your nieces, nephews, kids, and the children that are learning about fashion and coming into this industry hoping to create their own identity. How do we bridge, what solutions or what proposals would you have towards bridging that gap? The reason I ask this question is because so much is passed down through oral tradition. If your grandmama never taught you, you probably will never learn, right? So how do we either preserve that culture or utilize history in order to influence our present? So I will give that to Tomiwa and then Henry. Or Henry and Tomiwa.
Morning, everyone. My name is Henry Uduku. I am founder and creative director of Henry Uduku, a Nigerian-based, formerly just menswear brand, but now we've grown to incorporate women's wear in what we do. To answer that question, I would say that it really does boil down to storytelling. We keep talking about storytelling, and I'll talk about it from the perspective of, say, a Nigerian concept, Tales by Moonlight. And I don't think that's just Nigerian. I think that that's an African thing. There's stories that are from way before our grandfathers and our great-grandfathers, at least to the best of our knowledge, that we've heard. And like it or not, they're still relevant. Even though they have been watered down, you still find that there is a very strong, there's still a stronghold on the truth, the origins, and just like the entire culture of it. So I think that with storytelling, you can never really exhaust how much, or what the audience is. Say, for example, with the Zimbabwean history, for example, no one can tell your story better than you can, right? And we keep talking about storytelling and talking about the digital age that we're in. Are we telling these stories digitally? And if we don't, then the stories will be told for us, right? I feel like just hold on to that, do what you have to do. It's not enough for us to hear, complain, but then we need to take actions. We need to be deliberate. We need to own the stories, like we need to own it. And then when we do, everybody picks on it and, continues on the wave of the narrative that we have pushed out. I think that's where I'll leave that.
Good afternoon, House. My name is Dr. Tomiwa Balogu. I'm the creative director of Goblin & Co. from Abuja, Nigeria. To go straight to the answer to our question, basically I would say the interesting thing about African fashion is definitely our diversity. Yes, we do have everybody has their style, everybody's interested in different colors and shapes, but the idea of the craftsmanship, these colors, these patterns, that is what brings us together. And to add to what Henry has said, I would say the intra-Africa collaboration and trade is probably a way to push this learning and craftsmanship, like to make sure we don't lose all of that. If we take advantage of that platform and we trade with ourselves, I'm sure the stories would not get lost. So I would say that is definitely one way to keep up the craftsmanship and whatever it is we all have going on in our different regions going, and pass it on to the younger generation. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you.
Sorry.
Please.
So sorry. There's just something I feel we are missing in that specific part, and it's in IP.
IP.
I think we don't do enough to really protect what is ours. And I'll give a good example. We have a weaved bag in Kenya referred to as the Kiondo. And a few years back, I think it was Chinese or a Japanese brand, someone trademarked this. They trademarked it because they just could do it, and therefore they could, own the IP. And we were like, yo, you don't even have this there. But then we were sitting on the fence, just assuming people will be like, okay, that's African. I think we have to get to the point where, as African countries and creatives, whatever you create, start looking at how can I protect this and make sure it's authentically ours, even legally ours, so that if someone needs to collaborate, no, let them cross country, let them come here. Let them come here to collaborate with someone to get to do it. Let them ask for permission to use it. And I think a lot of the times, a lot of European brands, legacy brands have taken the liberty to just do whatever. And then they'll tokenize and be like, okay, we just pick. No, it's time we just also very viciously protect some of the things that are ours.
Thank you. Very powerful contribution. So intellectual property, that's a very valid point. Protecting, because IP is global. So even if someone in China, you have something to add to that, Milad? Please.
Well, it's not related to the textile or fashion industry, but I don't know, many of you know, but like our traditional food is injera. It's kind of the flat bread thing that you use. It's made out of teff, and some guy from Dutch decided to come and get a patent for that. So he owned it a few years ago, but now the government was like, that's ours. We need to have it back. So again, I feel like we need to do research. And then, because research, I cannot stress enough how very important it is to do research. And also making sure, like James said, that's a very important part of our creative process and just our identity as a continent. So yeah, I just wanted to drop that thing.
Thank you. Yes, please.
Okay, I just wanted to add, you asked how we can bridge the gap and ensure that future generations are going to be proud of our culture. I wanted to just add and say, how are we going to be proud of something that we don't know? If we're not practicing our culture as Africans, because obviously it's the new world, it's modern, but are we really practicing what we want our children to know or future generations to know about? Because that's where it really stems from. You have to be proud so that you can, if you're proud of something, you're going to be sharing about it openly and freely. And your children will also love that, love what you're sharing. And I think another way to also just ensure that future generations are going to know about our cultures and it doesn't get lost in between is by actually seriously documenting what was lost back in the days, partnering with the elderly who are still alive, who still know some of the things, our cultural stories from back in the days, and documenting those things which were never documented before because you said we are oral storytellers. So documenting so that people can read about these things decades and centuries to come. Yeah.
Thank you. Very. Are you not enjoying this conversation, or are you just polite? I love how this conversation is evolving because you're like naturally leading me to the next question, which is, so how can, as African designers, and please, I say African loosely because I know we're all from different countries, yeah? So how, as African designers, can we balance the preservation of our cultural heritage and our identity, and as well as protecting using IP and understanding intellectual property, and how do we balance that with the need to achieve global recognition, which is kind of what you've just touched on, and market access? So if we don't, let me not lead your question actually. Maybe who would like to start with that? Yeah? Okay. Thank you, Rahma.
Thank you. That's a great question, actually. So what I would say to that is that, so in every African country, we have elders, and then we have the young ones. So elders have a lot of knowledge. I was talking to my great aunt a few years ago. She was telling us how one of our great uncles who passed away in the genocide had a song that was passed down, and there's so many covers of it. So they have so much knowledge, and they want to make so many things. And then you have our younger generation, people my age, the Gen Z, who are very tech smart, who have such a vast knowledge of technology, who go viral on TikTok, right? So the point I'm trying to make is that involve them. So they have such a need and a hunger, I say it personally, because I'm one of them, that we have such a hunger to understand and know our culture. But the thing is, the generation that we've grown up in, we go to English-speaking schools or French-speaking schools, international schools that barely teach us anything about our culture. Honestly, the only thing much I learned about my culture was the 1994 genocide, which is important to learn, but also that's it. There is nothing else. And we have this hunger. So it's to really invest in the younger generation whilst pulling in the older generation to educate them, to know exactly what our culture is. And trust me, if you invest in them, they are going to take it globally. Because everybody's on TikTok, everybody's on Instagram. But the things we see on Instagram or TikTok, their dances, nothing that is very valid, that touches the core thing that makes us as Africans or as Ethiopians, as Nigerians, as Rwandans, as Zimbabweans. There's no such thing. It's like, oh, the best bakery in... You see what I mean? There is no such thing as education. So take videos of your aunt who's weaving, your great aunt. Take your moms and your grandmothers who have such a great heritage. Talk to them, get the Gen Z or even the millennials to take content and share it, to be able to start all these businesses and inspire them, like finance as well. Our elder generation doesn't really understand finance that much, and we do. I mean, we've spent years studying it. And this is an opportunity to get the knowledge that you've taken from university and invest it in that. Yes, thank you.
Girl, you got me fired up. I even had to remove my mic off the stand and say, tell me more. So are you saying Gen Z is the key to, or, okay, again, loosely, Gen Z, but basically the digital native, let me call it that, is the key to preserving our cultural heritage, but still, and our identities, but still targeting a global market? Do you all agree on the panel? Because most of you are nodding, some of you are just, so James, you look like you're burning. Do you want to, and then Chido, I'll come to you, and then Rungano. Yes.
I think what she's saying is quite right. And actually, coincidentally, there's a dance I saw on, I'm not on TikTok, but you know when the Instagram videos, it's just TikTok videos. There was a Rwandan dance that guys were doing that really was, I don't know if it was viral, but it was, I saw it on my feed a lot. And it was the coolest dance I've ever seen. I don't remember what the purpose for the dance was, but it was Rwandese. Yeah. And I was like, oh, that's cool. But that's where I saw it. And it had nothing to do with fashion. It just popped up on my feed. So I think, yeah, definitely bringing in that new Gen Z tech-savvy crowd. I feel I'm too far gone. Like, Instagram is my last... I'm really going to be involved in that, and then after that, I'm just like, I don't know. I think it's really key. And also looking at, that's one way to see how we can move our cultural narrative. And I think also when you look at it from a business perspective, and when we're looking at access to markets, which is, I think, something else you were saying, it's about working with the proper ripple of how scale is supposed to kind of work. Like homegrown is your best thing. You want to always grow homegrown. So you start in the town you are, the country you are. But most of the time in Africa, it's you start in the town you are, the country you are. You skip all of Africa, Europe. Like you've skipped the entire continent. It's now US. How do I get to here, there, everywhere? You've completely left even your neighboring countries. Like you're not even looking at those unless the item is passing through them or something. So I think we should have this Pan-African first thing where my next big market after Kenya should be East Africa. After East Africa should be either West Africa or South Africa or Southern Africa. And then when I've exhausted all that, I'm like, okay, let's see whether I can also serve guys in, like, intentionally, you should be getting into other African countries first. I know there are a lot of logistical challenges, but it's not like when Gucci opened, they were like, oh, let me serve Europe. Let me see what's happening in Africa. No, the stores here are more token. Like, if the country is big enough, then they'll put a Gucci or a Chanel in there, and we know which countries these are. So if they do it that way, we should be able to build 6, 7, 8 legacy brands, just primarily based in Africa, telling our stories and moving those narratives, and then everything else will kind of follow a kind of Africa-first perspective.
Thank you. Do you still want to, or was it Rungano? Oh, okay.
To add to what the other designers said, I think the importance of indigenous knowledge systems, documenting that is key, but also breaking it down to how we as individuals preserve our own, incorporate the cultural or heritage aspects that we understand into our daily lives or what we support. And I'm so heavy on supporting local all the time because I think that's how it starts. We think that it has to be something so complicated, but really we as individuals, we need to be more thoughtful in what we support so that even if you're telling a story, you can even show it because fashion, right now we're speaking to fashion, but then with fashion, you don't even have to use words. You can just show up and people be like, oh, okay, that's interesting. I'm curious to know more about that. And the other day we had a discussion related to fashion in film, and that beautifully captured how different designers across the continent and videographers are putting our work on a global platform in a way that is appealing to like the digital age, so that can then be transferred for content on TikTok, on social media, and it goes viral. But they're looking at the Kenyan culture, the Zimbabwean culture, and they're shooting in Cape Town, and people there are curious to say, okay, what's this about? I want to know more about it. But we're combining our indigenous knowledge systems and the technology that we have access to create the hype, because all of a sudden Africa is cool. It was about time, but like, you know, we have access to these tools, like what Rahma said. Pair the two generations or the generations across the board. Let's document what's happening, what the elderly are doing. I learned how to make paper beads from my aunt, and I have this it's not a funny thought, but I'm like, if I have kids, as soon as you turn 5, we are rolling paper beads because, you know, it's been my source of income, and I think I would want to pass it on, but it's documenting that process so that they can, okay, your aunt taught you, so my great-great-aunt taught me, so I know how to do this now, and it just continues to grow like that.
I love that. Okay, yeah. Let's go, Yvonne. It's a good conversation.
I'll keep it brief. So I just want to add on to what they've said. I greatly agree. Yeah. So my point is, we need to have a mindset shift as Africans. We need to love ourselves more. It has to start with each one of us. Challenge yourself, like on a daily or in a year. Just ask yourself, in my wardrobe, do I have something made in Zimbabwe? Or do I have something made in my wardrobe? Do you have something Ugandan made? Like anything African, let it start with us to preserve our culture. Love yourselves enough. Travel in Africa. Don't just be like, I want to go to Paris one day. Africa has to be on your bucket list. Like, you need to try and be like, I need to go to East Africa one day, West Africa one day. That's how, like, we've been brainwashed to hate ourselves. That's why we don't actually embrace our culture, you know? So it's going to be a mindset shift. I love that people here are already in that vibe. They love Africa, you can tell. Let's love ourselves more. Let's know that Africa is the future. Like, just get to know yourselves deeper, on a deeper level. Trust me, it will come naturally to embrace African brands. You'll be like, this is us. We're cool. We're the shit. So, sorry. But then, tell them. Yeah. Like, yeah, so when it comes to things like travel, food, like, love your culture. Just, have you guys ever wanted to go to East Africa, Nigeria? Don't tell us that you want to go to Paris all the time. That's your dream destination. Africa has to be on your bucket list, you know? Things like in your homes, you need to know your mother tongue. You can't just tell me you're African and you only speak English. You need to know your roots. So such things on a subconscious level, they affect you. Like in real life, you get to love yourself more. When you know your mother tongue, you know your grandparents, you know your family tree, those things are deep-rooted in us. That's the African in us. So when you know all those small things, trust me, it will come so naturally to want to rock a Zimbabwe brand, a Nigerian brand, a Ugandan brand. So let's love ourselves more. We need the mindset shift. Yeah, that's my point.
Thank you. Okay, so I hope I'm tracking. Put me back on track if I'm not. So we've talked about authenticity. We've talked about the importance of embracing our identity, our cultural heritage. We've also talked about the importance of documenting where we're coming from, documenting skill sets, documenting pretty much everything to do with our culture, not just for ourselves as producers of materials or, you know, clothing or anything that you produce as an individual, but also for generations to come. And then we've talked about the importance of then leveraging the digital natives and the new generation to make it cool, to make it trend, to kind of open up markets. But then an important shift happened in the conversation where the question was talking about accessing global markets. But then we've shifted the conversation to say what's important is accessing our market first, Africa first, starting from first within your country, then regional, then continental, and then maybe once we've exhausted all of that, start focusing on Europe. And I know a lot of it has to do sometimes with cost, so we're going to shift the conversation into the next step. Am I tracking? Are we on the same? Okay, all right. So now if we're shifting the conversation to talk about price point, right? So you'll find a lot of people will go and buy, clothes that come from China or whatever because they're cheaper. And sometimes cost of creating the clothing that you're doing. Let's talk about the industry now. Let's talk about logistics. Let's talk about supply management. Now, even if you want to, I want to order something from Ethiopia, from Zimbabwe, what is that going to cost me? Like, what is the supply chain? So can we unpack that? Can we look at that ecosystem and maybe do two things? If we can identify what are the key problems, and the second one, if you were in my session yesterday, I'm big on problems, but also solutions as well. But it's better to understand the problem before we talk about the solutions, because if we don't understand the problem, we are prescribing solutions blindly. So I want to start with Rahma, because Rahma, I know this is like part of what you do is, you're on the management side of things as well. And you have a lot of experience within supply chain management and things like that. Could you kind of walk us through, from your perspective, what is that looking like right now, and what are the biggest challenges that you faced? Then we'll move on to the rest of the panel.
If I was to talk about this, can you hear me? No, you can just sit down. It's okay, I got this. If I was to talk about this, would sit for the whole day.
Don't do that. Just
I'll try to be as brief as I can be. So the thing is, I'm going to talk specifically in my country. The biggest problem we have in Rwanda is that we don't make fabric. There is no where they manufacture fabric. We have one, but they make fabric for uniforms, so it doesn't really count. Yeah, it doesn't really count. So fabric has been one of the biggest problems that we as designers face. So it's really, the point is that you're trying to make good quality products. In order to make good quality products, you need good quality fabric. And you can sometimes, when you're lucky, you can go to the market and search for hours and you can't get that. But it is not sustainable. Like if you want to, like we have a shop, so which means we have to produce pieces to go in the shop. So we need a lot of fabric, big rolls of fabric. So for us to be able to get to that, we have tried to source fabric from Turkey, all that. Even so, we've tried to source also from places like Ethiopia, but the logistics side of it is very tiresome. It's costly money-wise, but even the brain power is. Because now you have to know someone who is in the country to look at the fabric and then pray to God that it's good. You can check the quality. You can check the quality of the fabric and everything, the composition. But then at the end of the day, when it gets here, if it's good, it's good. If it's not good, it's not good, right? So, and then trying to bring it here, customs. Oh, customs. Customs.
Yeah, do we have customs people here? British Council, next time we need customs people, tax people here to hear our cries. Please carry on.
Apologies, but customs, they will test you like so much. They will tax everything that you get. In my country, they've tried to release a bit of like VAT, a bit of taxes from it, but still it's quite costly as well. And then for it to come and sit in the storage thing and then have to come, all that is costly. So that's one thing, getting the fabric here. The other thing is manpower as well. So like, for example, we received a very, very big order from a big hotel to make, we did the designs for their uniforms. Great design, they wanted unique designs, but then now producing that is not easy because if you have 2-3 tailors and you're producing over 100 pieces, it's not gonna work. So we are missing out on that market because manpower is not that big. If you have 3 machines as well, because also machines are not very easy to get, and then that's also the problem like that. So they go to these big manufacturing companies that have so many tailors and so many, and then us designers, they're like, you've missed out on that market. You got a few from the design, but then it's not enough. You need to also be part of producing that product. Yeah, and another thing I would say is, the finance, the management of the money, it's very difficult to be like, because, like, I don't know if any of you have worked with accountants. I don't know if there are accountants in here. We have accountants? First of all, I'm sorry, but the accountants in my country, I'll say personally for me, they're also not easy to work with because there are so many taxes to file. Like, I can list like a bunch, like CIT, VAT. Apparently, there is pay on your people's salaries. You have to pay money on that, and then you have to pay pension, and you have to pay maternity, and you have to pay all these things. It's very hard to keep track of if you're in a management role, and like a brand like ours is not very big, so we don't have like we don't have operations. I'm the operations. I'm the sales agent. I'm the bookkeeper. I answer emails. I do everything as well. So it's not very easy to navigate that, and also working with an accountant and trusting them that they're going to file these taxes, so that our tax system in Rwanda is called Rwanda Revenue. The Rwanda Revenue doesn't come and be like, you owe us money.
Right.
Right, yes. So those are among the ones that I would say. Yeah.
Okay. My heart is sore because we have like less than...
Can I add something from a different...
Yes. So give me... Okay, answer very quickly. Chido, very quickly, and then we're going to have to wrap up our session.
Okay, so
I'm trying to ignore the person who's trying to look at me, so I'm going to just angle my body slightly so I can't see their distress.
So I want to say something from the first thing you said, we don't have fabric. So from a different perspective, I became the creative director of a brand that started out in Zimbabwe, I don't know how many years ago, but I've been there now for 3 years, and it's called Mpanjere Research. And what we basically do is industrial hemp research. If we had better policies, better education, we would all know that industrial hemp can do all of this for us. We have the arable land, we have the labor, we could produce our own fabric, which are better, sustainable, breathable, biodegradable. Whatever it is you want to compare it with what we get from China, we can compete. And one angle is industrial hemp. So with better education and better policy, I'm sure within the next couple of years, down in Nigeria, me and my partner, we're currently hosting the first African Industrial Hemp Festival next month. And this is for the policymakers, basically to shape the narrative of what goes on over the next couple of years. Thank you.
Thank you. I think it would be good if you could maybe share a link with that with Danai or anyone from the House of Stone team so that it can also be shared. I think that would be good for us to, oh yeah, tell us, Doc.
One thing, we're looking for partners. Like, we want partners all around Africa. So basically, it's not only in Nigeria this is going to happen. So we can keep the conversation going. So please, I'm happy to talk to whoever's interested. I'll share whatever you need with you after this. Thank you.
Solutions. I like that. Chido.
Right. I'm going to go to the solutions part of... I think as Africans, we are our own solution, to be honest. I understand you're saying you sometimes have to ask someone who's in Turkey or someone who's across the globe to look for fabric for you. But you also said there's a company that does fabrics for uniforms in Rwanda. I feel like that could be a starting point because they might be able to diversify and do something that's going to help you in your business to create the fabric that you want to use to make your products. And I also feel, I don't know if our governments and banks are doing enough to fund the fashion sector, because there's a lot of investment that's required for us to be able to, produce sustainably within our own economies in our own countries. So I think a solution lies in us, in finding our own solutions within our own ecosystems, and having our governments and banks back us up financially so that we can bring things up and be able to, compete globally as well.
Can I just add to that quickly? So I'll keep it short. Last night we went out and I had spotted this guy who, if you saw him, you would have thought he was very well dressed. He was wearing a limited edition Armani Kith t-shirts, and he had vintage McQueen sneakers. And I had a good laugh because we were here earlier at a session, and someone who was, giving some feedback made a comment where he said, African designers were getting too creative for ourselves. And I had a good laugh because that limited edition shirt is hundreds, thousands, right, of dollars. Those vintage shoes are hundreds, thousands of dollars. And you come to us and say we're too creative, forgetting that most of our businesses have different models. Some of us offer ready-to-wear, some of us offer bespoke services. If you wanted a bespoke suit, yes, we're ready to make that for you. If you wanted something off the rack, go ahead, But just to solidify something that my friends have said is, we need to re-educate ourselves, right? These conversations do not need to stop at this panel. We need to talk to our friends and our brothers and our sisters, because that's how the conversation, continues. That's how it spreads like wildfire. We need to love ourselves and love what we make. So, for example, exactly, the Pan-African story with fabric, for example, it's you are thinking of. I experienced some issues with the Rwandan imports and exports here recently, just in December. Like currently, I have inventory stock in Rwanda that apparently we have to pay hundreds, thousands of dollars to get back, and that's inventory that's just stuck there. So I understand that problem, but then in Nigeria, for example, we have different cultures have different types of fabrics. So one of the things that my brand prides itself in is using our indigenous fabrics. I take myself as a big case study for my brand. I sweat a lot, so I wear lightweight fabrics. We grow cotton in Nigeria. It's not very popular. It's called funtua. It's mostly in the northern part of Nigeria, and most of my products, are like of that. So we need to explore, like he said, African markets. Like, you have your neighbors, we're talking hemp now, and we have so much within ourselves that we're not tapping into, and then there's such a huge focus on the diaspora, and sometimes the conversation is confusing because we're trying to enter their markets and we're having the same conversations about desensitizing ourselves from decolonization and the effects of it. Let's focus, right? Love ourselves, re-educate ourselves, tell our stories, document the stories. It's just, let's not forget everything that everyone has said here, right? Just keep the stories going, digitally, orally, like every form, right? Thank you.
Thank you. This was too short. There was too much to talk about. I think the key thing I picked up, though, is that there definitely needs to be more cross-industry collaboration. Pan-African, but also in the context, like, across different industries. Like, it's not enough to talk about the fashion industry with just fashion designers. We need someone who's an expert on maybe the Africa Free Continental Trade Agreement. We need somebody who understands customs and taxing, somebody in banking and finance. We need to start having a lot more of the people that affect the industry at the table, because if we're having conversations within our echo chamber, we're gonna keep talking to each other and not really being able to effect a lot of solutions. And I think just this panel alone has so much brain power. Can you imagine if we were to sit down and have a real like cross-industry. Maybe at, the Doc's Industrial Hemp, forum, we're going to learn quite a bit, So I think we've had a really great conversation. I'm so sad to round it up. I know not everybody got to say something, but very, very quickly, I would like maybe just one word from two words from each person. One word on your feeling. Just a word. If you could summarize your feeling after this panel, what word would that be? And then the second thing being, where can people find you? Quickly, in seconds.
I'm feeling inspired, very inspired to further the idea and conversations and collaboration. You can find me at Henry Uduku on Instagram, HenriUduku, and my website's www.henryuduku.com.
I would say I feel very encouraged because we do have a lot of things in common to say, and we share the same problem. So I'm glad we're all thinking in the same line. To find Goblin and Co. is Goblin and Co. on IG. It has our websites, WhatsApp number, whatever you need to contact us, you find it there. Goblin and Co. on IG. Thank you very much.
I'd say I'm very optimistic. And as my mom says all the time, actions speak louder than words. So it's time for action. We've already spoken the words. You can find Itikadi on Instagram, Itikadi Fashion House, and also separately Itikadi Menswear. And our website is www.itikadi.co.ke.
Mine is more like a word of encouragement to all the entrepreneurs in the house. Don't give up on your dream. It's valid. Keep going. Stay consistent. Put in the hard work. Trust me, it will pay off. It will. And you can find me, Shwanda Collection. I'm the founder of Shwanda Collection. We make brass like what I'm wearing. We're right outside. You can check us out. Shwanda Collection. Thank you.
I would say persistent for each one of us. And to be continued, because this is just only the start. You can find us on Instagram, Dolmel, DOLMEL_DOLMEL. You should be able to find the QR code on my stand as well, and our website, dolmels.com, so DOLMELS.com. Thank you.
I feel optimistic as well. And just a quick word of encouragement, since it's Women's Day, to all the women in this room. There are so many people who are going to tell you no. There are so many people who are going to close doors to you. You need to push those doors. You need to make room for yourself. And you need to be hard. And make sure that you do that. You need to promise me that everybody's going to do that this year. All right, so, we are Otbaso. HAUTEBASO. That's our Instagram as well. And our website is www.otbaso.com. And we are outside. You can holla whenever you need. Thank you so much.
To be honest, I feel cheated because I feel like we were here for like 10 minutes only.
Cheated.
Yeah.
Where are you then?
But I feel charged, charged up today because I feel like there's so many insights that were shared. I'm ready to go on TikTok and start Muchongoyo dancing things so people can learn, our culture and traditions and things like that. But yeah, I'm really encouraged and charged to go forward to do the work that needs to be done for us to be heard out there. You'll find us on Instagram as Patch Maoko Izim. I'll also put a little stand with our Instagram QR codes for you guys to easily access us. Thank you.
Yeah, I also feel cheated. I feel ready.
Ready.
Not necessarily not that I'm there yet, but there's a growing community of fashion designers or the creative economy on the continent. And I know without a doubt, I can definitely flourish within a career in this space because it's growing and it's our time. So I'm very excited to be in the right place by chance, but I think that was part of the plan. You can find us at the corner at the back there. I can give you a card, but our Instagram and Facebook and WhatsApp information, it's at Paper Pieces, so at Paper Pieces _, and you can find all the other information that you need. But all our work is being showcased outside, so please do come through and check our pieces out, and we can have a conversation. Thank you.
Thank you so much. Also know their designs are going to be modeled on the runway this evening, 5 p.m. at the Fashion Showcase. So if you want to see, seeing is believing. What did you say? Action over words. So, I think it'll be really good for you to be there. And please attend 5 p.m. We have some beautiful models who are already doing all their fittings and all of that. So it's going to be a really great evening. I am going to hand over to Ellen Rock, who's also going to talk about a really incredible opportunity for fashion designers that is still open. And while Ellen is giving you some information, I'm going to be coming around with, I'm sure if you've been to a few sessions, you've seen these. So a feedback form, please, if you've been in here, please fill it in. I'm going to get some help as well to try and hand these out as quickly as possible. And one round of applause for Ellen.
Thank you. Thank you, Aura. Thank you so much, all the designers. I know you all personally, but hearing you speak was so inspiring. I just wanted to highlight an opportunity. So I'm the UK delivery partner for the Creative DNA Zimbabwe program. I'm working with House of Stone, who I'm sure you all know, who's curated this amazing event for us, Denai. And we've got 2 more days, which is open applications for fashion, textiles, and accessory designers to apply. So there's a 3-month accelerator program, which is run by the British Council in partnership with the Swiss Embassy. And all you to know more about the opportunity, then please come and find myself, Denai if she's free, or somebody from the House of Stone team. And just to give you a bit of background on the Creative DNA program, so the program aims to promote alternative and innovative approaches to the global fashion system, demonstrating that the fashion sector in Zimbabwe is a viable career option for young people and a valuable contributor to the creative economy. So I think echoing everything that's just been said, this would be a brilliant opportunity. So yeah, I'll hand back to Aura to close. And yeah, please find me if you need more info. Thanks.
Thank you. Thank you so much, Ellen. Please, again, thank you so much to each and every single designer on the stage, and thank you for sharing your experience, your input, your opportunities as well. Please keep talking to each other as well, because in and of itself, you are a unit, you're a powerhouse that could actually cause a huge ripple effect. And walk the talk, show us what collaboration looks like. And let's see you again in the next 5 years when 1 in every person walking this earth is an African, and see, where we stand. So thank you so much. Warm whoop whoop, I know you're writing, but some kind of acknowledgement of our designers, please, as they take their stage. You're free to take your seats. Thank you so much. We'll now break for lunchtime. Please, before you leave, please kindly leave your forms. You can leave them up front, you can leave them on your way out, or just see Rutendo. Rutendo has her hand up. So if you're done with your form, please raise your hand and Rutendo will grab it from you. Please also return the pen if you can.